Welcome to the Dave Mierswa Show, the cutting-edge talk show about legal, political, and current issues. Practicing in both Wisconsin and Illinois, David Mierswa is a leading trial attorney bringing nearly 2 decades of business law, family law, personal injury, and estate planning experience to you. The Dave Mierswa Show, about the people, for the people, and bringing justice to the people. The Dave Mierswa Show, its guests, agents, and WRLR are not rendering any legal advice. All listeners are encouraged to seek legal advice from properly licensed and qualified professionals.
Welcome back to the Dave Mierswa Show. I had to take a break there, and I'm feeling a little more fired up here today. And this topic, a lot of people are kind of nervous to talk about, and I agree with you. It's a very nervous topic to talk about, and it makes people feel uncomfortable, but that's why I started this radio show. My first shows, I talked about racism and I talked about civil rights. And with all the stuff going on out there, between Ferguson and Baltimore and with all the racism and all that, or the perceived racism, it makes people feel uncomfortable. But the only way you get over such topics, and the only way that you solve these problems, that's right, you need to talk about it. And you found the best person that will bring you these topics. So I hope that you find all my topics interesting. If you got some topics that you want me to bring to the radio show, you can go to law540.com. My email's there. You can email me and let me know some topics. And I'm not just going to, in 2016, I'm not just going to talk about politics. I mean, it's a pivotal year, no doubt. But that's not the only thing that is going on in the world. And I try to reach out. I try to grab these global topics as well that affect all of us. Okay, so the topic that I was talking about before break was this Green Beret that was let go. Yes, he physically assaulted a scumbag police commander from Afgan who raped a 12-year-old boy. Allegedly. It's all alleged. And the Afghan commander laughed in the face of Captain Martland, who went and, I guess, through some of the articles that I read, and he shouldn't have done this, but he body slammed them several times outside the camp. And do you think that's enough justice for the scumbag Afghan commander? And it seems to be much more than an isolated incident. So much so that the military and the Pentagon want our military personnel over there to basically ignore this. And they're on a restraining order not to talk about it, if you can believe it. So don't you think that wherever our soldiers go, that their moral code goes, and America goes, and to win over the hearts and minds of the local population, and that's what we use, and yet our military wants to drum out this captain and drum him out of the service? And he should have been disciplined. There's no question, he should have been disciplined for attacking this Afghan, but it's not black and white. He got mad defending his moral code, and by all means. And how else do you measure a man or a woman? By their moral code and their actions. So let me play the next audio clip here.
A troubling article in the New York Times details one U.S. soldier's account of how he witnessed Afghan police sexually abusing boys. Special Forces officer Dan Quinn, who died on base in 2012, told his father in phone calls home he was able to hear the screams of these children at night from his bunker on base. The father of the officer, Officer Quinn, has acknowledged that his son was told to look the other way, that this was just their culture. Elliot, I was reading this with tears in my eyes this morning and a knot in my stomach. It made me so physically sick getting through this article. You know, it talks about how this officer knew this was happening. He actually confronted the U.S.-backed militia leader with a boy chained to his bed. And Quinn was told to look the other way. Quinn was told that this was their culture, that the U.S., we don't get involved in things like this. Right. And it makes me physically sick that this is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no justification for this. It's troubling in the extreme. The argument, I would assume, from the military is the fact that they're going in and they're not seeking to have a cultural revolution in the way that we would ordinarily expect, or from a morally Western moral standpoint. They're going in seeking to stabilize a country, and really anything in addition to that or contrary to that is outside their purview.
Well, not only that, but, you know, the U.S., if you recall, we went on, we had this great mantra of fighting the Taliban. We're propping up one group. This group, I mean, if this is true, if these reports are true, that these police officers, if there's this systematic issue where it's a cultural acceptable practice to sexually abuse little boys, and we're helping and propping them up and working with them, how despicable is that of us? Where is the line for us, morally speaking? We've chosen Group A, and it seems like that they can do whatever they want to do. And we're aware of it. We're not allowed to intervene because we hate Group B, the Taliban, so badly. Well, why is that?
It's the lesser, right? No, I 100% agree. It's a morally indefensible standpoint. It is this arbitrary choosing, seemingly, of two equally unpalatable options, and for a variety of political and international relations reasons, we choose group, as you said, we've chosen this particular group over the Taliban, and yet, when you dig a little bit deeper, you see that they have, just as a reprehensible record of human rights, and they're just as despicable as the people that the United States oppose. So, it's a murky, shitty, horrible world, and it's a horrible situation. It is. There's no way that you can defend this. It is just so troubling that the United States approach was, let's just sweep it under the carpet. We don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to cause any trouble. We're trying to get along with these people. Don't step in here. I mean, when it's abuse of children.
Okay, so you heard enough of that audio clip, and that was another soldier that was killed out in Afghanistan, apparently, and was a witness to a kid being chained to a bed. I mean, this stuff is just unbelievable. Unbelievable that this stuff is going on, and our military is instructing our soldiers over there to basically turn the cheek and look the other way. And they are also putting a gag order on our military for trying to talk about this topic, which, and again, no one feels comfortable talking about that. I get that, but my moral code is so offended by this behavior. My moral code is so offended by the Pentagon commanders that would allow this kind of conduct to go on and around where our soldiers are stationed and where our stations are fighting. Why else are we there? Why else are we in Afghanistan and Iraq? We're not there for the oil. We've given back all that, rightfully so. But why else are we there? Are we there to protect the local population? Are we there to talk about and present morals? I mean, why else are we there? Are we there just to try to kill an enemy, then allow a lesser of an enemy to take over? So, how do you defend that? You can't. But to ignore this topic and allow this to go on, and our media ignores it, unbelievable. It really is unbelievable that this would go on. So, also, the next audio clip I have here is the Army commander was not allowed to come back into the military. I believe his appeal was denied. So let's play this audio clip here from Fox News.
Breaking today, a Green Beret ordered discharged after he confronted an alleged child rapist in Afghanistan has learned that the Army has denied his appeal. Last month, the Kelly File reported on Sergeant First Class Charles Martland and his fight to continue serving his country after he and his team leader got in trouble for striking an Afghan police commander accused of raping a young boy and then beating up the child's mother. Trace Gallagher live in our West Coast newsroom with the very latest. Trace?
And Megan, the memo sent to Sergeant First Class Charles Martland says that his appeal to remain in the Army is denied because there is no new evidence. But it's the original evidence that has made this story so controversial. In 2011, Martland, a decorated Green Beret, was helping train Afghan police officers in the Kunduz province when a woman came into their camp claiming one of the Afghan police commanders had repeatedly raped her 12-year-old son and badly beaten her. Sergeant Martland and his teammate, Captain Daniel Quinn, confronted the Afghan police commander, and Captain Quinn told the Kelly File the police commander confessed. Listen.
Then he started laughing. Once we described how atrocious this was and how disparaging this was, he started laughing in our face and just shrugged his shoulders almost as if to say, it's no big deal.
Quinn, who accepted the Army's dismissal, then acknowledges that he and Sergeant Martland lost their tempers and threw the police commander to the ground. It was that physical altercation that got the soldiers in trouble. Even though U.S. soldiers are not required to report cases of child abuse in Afghanistan, today the Department of Defense strongly disputed reports that members of the military had been told to look the other way. Listen.
There is no policy in place that directs any U.S. military or government personnel overseas to ignore human rights abuses. On the contrary, we monitor such atrocities closely and have continually stood up for those who have suffered exploitation.
Now, Republican Congressman Duncan Hunter is outraged by the soldiers' removal and is pressing Defense Secretary Ash Carter to reverse the decision. Megan.
Trace, thank you. Joining me.
Okay, so his appeal was denied by the military. So it looks like he's almost out of legal recourse. And in the law, there's a separate whole legal system that the military goes by. They have a military code, and it's much different from the civilian law that all of you and I have to adhere to. So it's much different. It's much more strict and so forth. So, hopefully he'll get one last appeal, and maybe he will be able to remain in the military. But, he should have been disciplined, but to be drummed out of the military, I think is a little harsh. And based on what he heard and him getting upset and this other colleague of his and, just being kicked out, I think that's a little egregious. And what they should be focusing on was the conduct of this Afghan police commander. That's the conduct, that's the topic that should be talked about. And you just heard that any human rights abuses aren't quashed in the military, which, you heard from my last, the two audios ago, that it is being quashed by the military. It's trying to be hushed up. So that was the topic that I really had to get off my chest this week. Dave Jakes, who is a host of Cast and Blast, posted that on Facebook this past week, and I saw some articles on it. So I changed my topic this week. Midway through this week, I changed topics, and I really wanted to share this topic with you. And it really is offensive that our military is not reporting this and turning their eye to it. Why else are we in this country? And we have a military there, and you're not building up these countries, and you're certainly not providing them the moral code that should be enforced, at least throughout our military. I don't know about you, but I find that highly offensive. I find that offensive what happened, and it looks like it's more than one isolated incident. How much that goes on over there, I don't know, but I will keep you posted on this, and I hope Captain Martland has a chance to have his career continue. So another reason, it starts from the leadership down. So that is that in-your-face topic. Now, I got an email. I want to end the show with answering an email that I answered several months ago, actually. And I've talked about this several times. And believe it or not, I actually did get an email. So if you want to email me, you can go to law540.com, law540.com. And the email is that, Dave, love the show. What do I need for estate planning? Do I need just the will? And if you go to my website, law540.com, I have an article on the pitfalls of a will. But the 5 things that you need for estate planning, number 1 is going to be a living revocable trust. A living revocable trust, and that keeps you out of probate, and it keeps that transaction private. So that's a living revocable trust. And then the next one is going to be a pour-over will. So the pour-over will is a specific kind of will that's connected with the living revocable trust. Okay, and then the third item that you need is going to be power of attorney for health. So if you are rendered unconscious and you want to have your loved ones make medical decisions for you and you are unable to, you need to have a power of attorney for health. So if you don't have that, you're at the mercy of the doctors. And trust me, I don't think you want that. The fourth thing that you want is power of attorney for durable or general durable power of attorney. Let me rephrase that. A general or durable power of attorney that allows a third party or a loved one to act on your behalf. So if you're injured or you're unconscious or you're unable to leave your house, whatever it is, they can take this power of attorney, go over to your bank, and they can help with your financial transactions and so forth. Okay, and then the last one is a HIPAA medical authorization. HIPAA medical authorization. And this allows a loved one or a lawyer that you're working with to go get medical records. So if you are sitting unconscious in a hospital or you're under sedation or whatever it is, and you physically can't leave that hospital, a loved one or a lawyer or someone that you know and trust can go in, order these medical records, bring them to an independent doctor, and then have an independent exam done. So, problem is with hospitals, you have to have what's known as hospital privileges for a doctor to enter that hospital and to get medical records. So if you have a life or death situation and you need medical records, that's what you need, a HIPAA medical authorization. So let me go over this again. You have a living revocable trust. That's number 1. Number 2 is a pour-over will that is connected to the living revocable trust. Anything that doesn't hit the living revocable trust then hits the pour-over will. And then the third one is power of attorney for health, and that allows a loved one to make medical decisions on your behalf. So if that time ever comes, they want to pull the plug or make decisions about some kind of invasive surgery, that's huge. And number 4 is a durable or general power of attorney that someone can go in on your behalf and do finances and a whole bunch of other things. Then the last one is HIPAA medical authorization. So those are the 5 things you need. So that's an answer to the email. Again, my website is law540.com, law540.com. Next week, I'm going to be talking about the 2016 politics and the Iowa results. Monday is the completion of the Iowa caucus. This is going to give us a snapshot of what's coming up in the future. And I believe I already gave my 2016 predictions. I've already said Trump, Rubio, and Ted Cruz will remain in the top 3, and the other candidates will fade. But next week, I will give you the results of the Iowa caucus, and then I believe after that is New Hampshire. So New Hampshire is going to be the next caucus in politics. So I will get back to the politics next week. So I got about 2 minutes here to wrap up the show. And you know, this topic that I talked about today, and I've talked about other such topics as racism and breaking down racist barriers and so forth. You yourself have to be the one that's going to do that. And I told you before, for many years I sat on the sidelines with the politics and a lot of these topics, and I kept waiting for someone to introduce these topics to the radio and people to talk about the topics that I talked about today and all the other of my previous topics that I had on my website. And I looked left, I looked right, and there was no one else, so I stood up. So I hope you guys enjoy the topics that I bring to you, and I know I search very hard to bring you these topics, and at the least they're definitely not boring, but they are cutting edge, they are in your face topics. So I hope you enjoyed the show today. I'll be back next Sunday, 12 noon, and I will have the results of the Iowa caucus, and we'll kind of do some more predictions, and we'll have the results from it. And I think that's going to be an indicator of how Americans are really feeling out there. So we'll talk about that next week. All you friends and listeners out there, you take care of yourself and your family and friends. I'll talk to you next Sunday, 12 noon. Take care.